theory, the complete Yu-Gi-Oh anime and manga timeline. Anime and manga? Wait, hold on, I didn't know that. As you may know, I only watched the original Duel Monsters and GX, and I watched some of the duels of other parts, right? So I have a lot of like a bit of context, or rather, I was missing a little bit of context in those duels, and also get some clues of what's going on. But now I want to see like everything together, and that's gonna be very interesting. So let's see how. Let's see a complete timeline. I'm very curious. Let's see. In loving memory of Kazuki Takahashi, the GOAT.
I finally done it, internet! My theories are finally complete! I've explored every inch of the Yu-Gi-Oh!
Wait, what is
Searched
this?
every corner of the wiki. Over 1,000 anime episodes, countless manga pages, millions of pieces of the puzzle, all coming together. And now, the complete Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime and manga timeline!
I wonder how the manga is gonna like affect in this. Or the opposite way, right? Because I think they have the completely different canons, right?
Okay, here we go. Not the first to try his hand at this topic, probably not the last. Here's hoping I ain't the worst. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Timeline is a bit of a mess. There are currently 8 anime shows and coincidentally 8 manga projects.
Coincidentally?
The original Duel Monsters anime was
Wait, hold on. What do you mean coincidentally?
Anime shows and coincidentally 8 manga projects.
What? What are we missing here? There is no brains? There is no brains manga? Okay. There's no brains, right? Or am I missing something? That doesn't look like there is a brains manga. And there's also, this is Rush Duels, right? And I don't know what this is. But doesn't seem to be there. So, yeah. Ray Brains manga? The Pyramid of Light is before the first anime? What? No. Obviously not. Brains doesn't have a manga. No, Brains is the only spin-off to... Is the only spin-off to not get a manga? Wait. Brains is a spin-off? I thought it was like part of the... It's gonna be explained. It's gonna be explained, I guess. Let's see.
The original Duel Monsters anime was adapted from the Duel Monsters manga, but none of the other series are adaptations. And the first 3 series of the anime all seem to take place in the same universe.
Only
but everything after that seems pretty self-contained. Sorta. So before I start to make heads or tails of this, I know that some of you are already running to the comment section to say that there is no overarching, interconnected Yu-Gi-Oh! Continuity. That the show is just a series of 30-minute card commercials, and that I am wasting my time by talking about this. And if you're doing that, I have just one thing to say to you.
That's boring. You're boring, everybody. Quit boring everyone!
Okay, so we're gonna start with the first 5 anime shows. Yu-Gi-Oh's
You mean the main series? Yes, Brains is one of...
5Ds, Zexal, and Arc 5. And for the purposes of this theory, all of these shows take place one after the other in one mostly unbroken timeline.
Mostly.
Duel Monsters happens, then GX, then 5Ds, then Zexal, then Arc 5. In Duel Monsters, we learn that the world used to be full of dark magics, and that sorcerers in ancient Egypt used this magic to play the Shadow Games. Rituals that allowed them to bind and control the spirits of monsters. The Shadow Games brought the world to the brink of destruction, until an ancient pharaoh was forced to seal away the games to protect mankind from the threat that they represented. Millennia passed, and an archaeologist named Maximilian Pegasus discovered the historic remains of the Shadow Games while in a dig in Egypt. He was granted the Millennium Eye by the spirit guardian Shadi, and used it in order to produce and mass market the Shadow Games as the modern game of Duel Monsters.
I mean, why not, right? We already talked about it. Just turn your trauma into business.
Which sent Solomon Moto challenges.
I still love how iconic that is. It's like There is 4 of these cards. I can only use 3 of them, so I'm gonna destroy the other one so no one can use it against me. Grandson, I can solve this artifact. Here it is, as a toy. Yeah, just grab it. Just grab it, dude.
Kaiba to a revenge duel, which the Spirit of the Millennium puzzle helps him win by being the first player to ever successfully summon Exodia, the Forbidden One.
He was never
this win
summoned
attracts
before?
the attention of Maximilian Pegasus, who uses his Millennium Eye to imprison Solomon's soul away within a playing card, and coerces Yugi into competing in his upcoming Duelist Kingdom tournament.
The gauntlet was so iconic. Too bad it didn't come back, as far as I know.
Fine.
We're gonna skip the capsules? Alright, dude. We're gonna mention darts and the other stuff, but we're skipping the capsule game, whatever. I don't know. You know, with the guy. Yeah, remember the guy? Yeah. This is basically Dragon Ball Kai speedrun of the plot. Well, this is what it is, right? Like a timeline, right? So we're getting to the main
planet
parts,
does not
I
get
guess.
destroyed, the good guys win, and after one last duel, Yugi and the Pharaoh finally part ways, with the Pharaoh departing for the land of the dead, while Yugi prepares to move on to adulthood.
Wow.
So that's point 1 on our timeline. Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters.
Mhm.
Done. Next we have Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, which takes place 10 years later when Yugi bumps into a kid named Jaden Yuki, who is
Did you
Linex,
say
which takes place 10 years later.
10 years later? Are you sure it's 10 years later? Are you sure about that? Is that a confirmation of that? I've never heard 10 years.
Into a kid named Jaden Yuki, who is late for his entrance examination at Kaiba's fancy duel school. Our old hero's just kinda got a feeling about this kid, and so he hands over his winged Karibo card and wishes Jaden luck. Jaden proceeds to win an examination duel that's been rigged against him in order to get into Duel Academy, and he ends up in the Slifer dorm, which is where students with the lowest grades and records are placed, but he still ends up being the best in his year anyways. In his first year, he stops a gang of duelists from getting their hands on the Sacred Beast cards, which could have potentially led to the end of the world. In his second year, he stops a fortune teller who is possessed by a psychic light from using a satellite to brainwash the entire planet.
Yeah.
Don't ask, it doesn't make any more sense in context. Then in his third year, he meets a cute boy, goes dimension hopping with him, runs into his ex-girl card, watches all of his friends die, becomes a mass murderer, self-actualizes, patches things up with his ex, and goes on to save the world from the devil before having a for funsies duel in the past with Yugi.
You gotta love GX, dude. GX is insane. If you put it like that in like 30 seconds, yeah, that is GX is wild. And people were saying, I remember people saying, no, I don't like it. They are just in high school or whatever, right? I wanna watch that. That is cringe. Nah. Yeah, it's an acid trip, dude. What they didn't mention that the guy turned into a dinosaur, right? The space or whatever. Yeah.
A bunch of other characters and locations from Duel Monsters show up. Kaiba actually owns the Duel Academy where Jaden and his friends go to school. And there's also this blink and you'll miss it throwaway reference to Yugi's old high school bully, Tetsu Trudge, in the show's last season.
Bruh.
Pretty easy to place this show in the timeline just after Duel Monsters. Then comes Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds and the story of Yusei
so fast.
Fuda. It's pretty clear from the get-go that this is the same Yu-Gi-Oh! We've always known, but different. We're a little ways in the future, and our protagonist is an orphan who grew up in the Satellite, a junk town that is all that remains of Domino City, the primary setting of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters and a reoccurring setting in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. The upper class of society lives in New Domino City, where event duels are held in a state-of-the-art arena called the Kaiba Dome, again a reference to Yugimoto's original rival.
The Kaiba Dome.
We also learn that Kaiba's company, the Kaiba Corporation, was responsible for reconstruction efforts after Domino was destroyed, and that they eventually developed dual run technology.
Acid Adventure.
Oh, and Yugi's old high school bully Trudge, he shows up again here too. Now he's a thuggish beat cop who starts off working for the bad guys, before he learns that friendship is the true meaning of card games on motorcycles.
Wait, is it actually him? It's not like... Is it actually him, or is it like a descendant?
Technology for the sport of turbo dueling. Oh, and Yugi's old high school bully Trudge, he shows up again here too. Now he's a...
What? Dragon Serpent, thank you so much for the sub. Thank you. It is just him? It is him? Wait, I thought it was like so long in the future. Like, we didn't say it. I assumed that it was like many years in the future. This is... Huh. Did he say like how long was in between? Did I miss that?
Comes Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds and the story of the timeline just after Duel Monsters. Then comes Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds and the story of Yusei Fudo. It's pretty clear from the get-go that this is the same Yu-Gi-Oh! We've always known, but different. We're a little ways in the future, and our protagonist is...
Little what?
Yu-Gi-Oh! We've always known, but different. We're a little ways in the future, and our...
Little ways in the future? I need an estimate, dude, because this is... Alright, dude. I didn't know it was literally the same guy. Okay. The Yu-Gi-Oh! World had a bad, like 40 years or however long from Duel Monster to 5Ds. 40 years. There is no way this guy is like over 50. There's a reporter character that looks like the daughter of Joy and Mai. Oh.
Here too. Now he's a thuggish beat cop who starts off working for the bad guys, before he learns that friendship is the true meaning of card games on motorcycles. 5Ds definitely feels like the same world as Duel Monsters and GX. It's just aged up a little bit.
Aged up a little bit?
Through puberty, and now it's ready to save the world with a driver's license. But here's where things start to get weird. 5Ds is a time travel show, and most of the events we see actually take place in an altered version of history. We eventually learn that in the original version of Time, Kaiba Corp developed a technology called Momentum, or NRD in the dub, a sort of nuclear power plant that runs on the newly developed synchro summoning mechanic in the Duel Monsters card game. And this new synchro technology led to a golden age of prosperity on Earth, and everybody just played Yu-Gi-Oh! All day while riding on their motorcycles, and everything was just
That's so
perfect.
funny.
But humanity didn't realize that using synchro monsters to run their power plants was affecting the evolution of the species. Momentum reactors were...
How? How was it affecting the evolution of the species?
basically releasing Duel Monsters radiation across the planet.
Okay. Why do I even ask? Sure. Duel Monster radiation.
And people spent 200 years mutating because of it, becoming more cruel, selfish, and destructive. They kept pushing momentum technology further and further without realizing that Moment, the operating system running all the momentum tech on the planet, had become self-aware, which led to a classic man versus machine apocalyptic war called the Mech Lord Genocides.
You know, if you play card games enough, you will turn into the Hulk. Totally.
Which ended when all the momentum reactors on the planet exploded, wiping
blaming
out both
cards
sides
for toxic
and leading
behavior.
to war
That is
without
insane,
a
right?
winner.
That is basically the video games turn you violent.
There were 4 human survivors: Zone, Antinomy, Aporia, and Paradox.
Paradox?
And these 4 scientists searched for a way to bring back humanity by changing the past, salvaging any functional human or mech lord technology that they could find in order to build a working time machine. And eventually, they succeeded and journeyed back in time.
Yeah, I know this basically magic, I know, but I think like we're past that. So, yeah.
Okay, well actually, no. Technically, they all got old and died, but their consciousnesses were uploaded into android duplicates of themselves, and the androids are completely capable of feeling emotion and remembering the pain of mankind's end, so the androids went back in time, which feels like an unnecessary complication in the story, but whatever. In any event, that's the end of the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Timeline. We've got Duel Monsters, and then GX, and then the Kaiba Corp releases momentum technology into the world. 200 years later, Moment becomes self-aware, there's a global man versus machine war, the reactors go kabloom, everybody dies, and 4 robots go back in time to try
200
to
years
fix it.
later.
That is the complete first Yu-Gi-Oh! Timeline. It's a very sad story.
Yeah.
But fortunately for everybody, this timeline gets completely
Isn't
overwritten.
can time
It
travel?
doesn't exist anymore. After abandoning the year
Digital gods can do,
2200 and something,
but we don't
the Zone,
know.
Antinomy, Paradox, and Aporia androids proceed to spend centuries rewriting history in various failed attempts at preventing the Mechlord genocides from ever happening. They founded a secret society known as Iliaster in order to reshape history over the course of millennia, and throughout 5Ds, we see Iliaster change history several times. But each time that they do, the present is rewritten to reflect its new past. When Paradox goes back in time to kill Duel Monsters creator Maximilian Pegasus, we watch Yusei's period in history begin to collapse as its relative past is altered. Yusei has to follow Paradox back in time and save Pegasus.
This animation
in order
is so
to prevent
funny to
his
me.
world from being erased. This is important because the next show in the series, Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal, or Zale if you prefer the original pronunciation,
Zale?
is where things start to get fuzzy. The story of Zexal follows Yuma Tsukumo as he bonds with an alien spirit creature named Astral, who is suffering from some card game-related amnesia. The series focuses on the pair as they search for Astral's lost memories, and later find themselves caught up in a war between Astral's homeworld and the invaders from Barian World. Unlike all the previous shows, Zexal doesn't go out of its way to draw a line back to its predecessors. There are no characters from Duel Monsters GX or 5Ds around. There are no subtle name drops or familiar locations.
There's no Kaiba
and all the
Corp?
new mechanics introduced in 5Ds, like synchro summoning and turbo dueling, are just gone. But there is suddenly this new mechanic called Xyz summoning, which works kind of like synchro summoning, but different. Plus, the show
it's
kinda
like
feels
that,
a
but
soft
different,
reboot of
totally.
Duel Monsters, with Yuma and Astral's relationship and final duel with one another closely mirroring the story of Yugi and the
That's what I
Pharaoh.
was thinking.
Maybe this is the beginning of its own separate universe. But I genuinely don't think so. 5Ds went out of its way to establish that Yu-Gi-Oh's story existed on a single rewritable timeline. So it would be weird for the next entry in the franchise to throw that out right away. And there are a lot of subtle clues connecting Zexal back to the original trilogy of Yu-Gi-Oh! Shows. For example, the Fudo family from 5Ds promised us that momentum technology would lead to a venerable utopia for all of mankind.
Shut up, it's not called Utopia. It's also commonly accepted that Yusei invented Xyz summoning after 5Ds. Wait, really? Also in Seal has a statue of Dark Magician, Neos, Blue Eyes, and more, but no Stardust statue. Huh.
Exactly what Heartland City seems to be. Pollution and
Duel
poverty.
Links confirm Seal happened in a different dimension. Oh, it's confirmed by Duel Links, but is Duel Links like canon? Does it have like authority to say how it is? I don't know.
Are nowhere to be seen. Automated systems take care of day-to-day affairs like sanitation and security. Everybody seems to have ready access to all of the world's futuristic technology. This is the world that Yusei and his father dreamed of creating for mankind. And while the show never discusses the origins of Xyz summoning, there is some interesting lore from the real-world trading card game that fills in the gaps. The 2011 starter deck, Dawn of the Xyz, states that Xyz monsters are made from antimatter and arrived in Yuma's universe through a black hole, which is an odd coincidence since Yusei happens to witness the creation of a new black hole in the last few episodes of 5Ds and ends the series in possession of the device that Antinomy used to travel to that black hole. Plus, in Zexal, Heartland uses black holes as part of their sanitation department, shooting trash into space rather than letting it pile up on Earth. Throw in all the duel monsters and GX
that was
era
the
monsters
statues.
and symbols that show up in the Duel Lodge during
God.
Zexal's first season, and I think we've gone way past coincidence. There are just too many clues tethering this show back to the original 3 to ignore. Sure, enough time has passed that people aren't commonly discussing the events of the 3 previous shows, but their histories are very much ingrained into the world of Zexal. And personally, I think that the show is so much more interesting if you look at it in the context of its predecessors.
Is it?
For example, near the end of Zexal, we learn that the universe was created when a divine dragon willed it and all of life into existence, but that the effort of creating reality ultimately caused that dragon's body to die and its soul to crash land on Earth, flooding the planet with an energy known as chaos. A power that has mostly disappeared by the time Zexal starts. But where did it go? Why did it disappear? Well, looking at it in the context of duel monsters, I'd say that chaos is the power that the Pharaoh sealed away when he banished the Shadow Games from our world. Egyptian sorcerers were harnessing their chaos to bind monster spirits to their will.
But this is all a theory. This is all a big theory.
Which is why the Pharaoh was ultimately forced to seal that power away. Sure, you could still use existing chaos items, like the Millennium items or the Shadow Charms, in order to initiate Shadow Games, but ordinary people lost the ability to just do magic once chaos was sealed away. Flash forward a few thousand years, and 5Ds ends with Yusei and the Signers preventing the end of the world, and with Yusei taking over the development of Project Moment for New Domino City. The show always framed synchro summoning and momentum reactors as an
what? 1,000 years?
Allegory for Yusei and the Signers. Chaos was sealed away. Flash forward a few thousand years.
Oh, because we were talking about the ancient times. Okay.
5Ds ends with Yusei and the Signers preventing the end of the world.
Chad.
And with Yusei taking over the development of Project Moment for New Domino City. The show always framed synchro summoning and momentum reactors as an allegory for real-world nuclear energy, which currently holds the distinction of having the highest capacity factor of any non-theoretical energy source. But by the time of Zexal, the nuclear metaphor has been replaced by antimatter, which currently holds the distinction of having the highest capacity factor of any theoretical energy source, suggesting that nuclear synchro energy was phased out for safer and more efficient antimatter XC's reactors. And Zexal doesn't just...
Okay, this is... Okay, sorry, I'm kinda like trying to process all of that because like Yu-Gi-Oh! GX were like so straightforward and then it got weird with 5Ds and then it got even weirder here with all the energy and stuff like that. Yeah. Duel Links is a different dimension that is maybe canon to Brains. Maybe canon. Alright, antimatter cards. The thing is like 99.1%, to give a random number, of Duel Links story respects what happens in the anime. And they treat Seal as a very different dimension. So it was probably the idea in the show. Okay. Heartland City, Yuma's hometown is Newer Domino City, but in the far future. Numbers are a living representation of human desires, and it drags out the worst part of person. There's no reason to believe that. Well, if it's not stated by the show, and it seems like there is no indication of that, yeah, I think it will be mentioned in the video, right? If that was the case, if there was like evidence of that. But it could be.
Just tie a line back to the original 3 Yu-Gi-Oh! Shows. It also sets up some pretty important plot points that future shows will tackle later. In Zexal,
you explain why they
gets caught up in the renewed war between Astral World and Baryon World.
No.
Both sides race to get a hold of the Numeron Code, a Duel Monsters card containing the infinite power of the Creator Dragon. And the series ends with the character Astral using the Numeron Code to reunite Astral World and Baryon World, an action that we're warned has allowed the power of Chaos to return to Earth, and which will have grave consequences. A lot of fans have criticized the show for failing to explain what those consequences were, but I actually think we did get our answers in the very next show, Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5.
Really?
Throughout this series, the main characters are constantly jumping back and forth between dimensions that correspond to the different summoning methods in the game. So there's a standard dimension, a fusion dimension, a synchro dimension, and an Xyz dimension.
I like how one of the dimensions is just like the it's just like the standard dimension. Totally. This is the standard one. You're all wrong. You're all weird. You all have like different summoning mechanics, okay? This is the standard one.
Dimension, a synchro dimension, and an Xyz dimension, and each one resembles the show and the time period in which that summoning method was mainly used. So there are a lot of familiar characters like Alexis Rhodes and Aster Phoenix in the Fusion dimension, and most of them tie back to Duel Academy. Special cards and plot points from GX show up again here after years of being absent from the anime. And then the synchro and Xyz dimensions resemble 5Ds and Zexal in the same way. But then at the end of Arc 5, we learn that all of the different dimensions used to be a single, unified dimension. And that is when it all made sense. The original dimension that we see in flashbacks in Arc 5 is the continuity of all the shows prior to Arc 5. Duel Monsters, GX, 5Ds, and Zexal all happened in the original dimension. Everything from the Numeron Dragon creating the universe to Astral using the Numeron code and inadvertently allowing chaos energy to return to mankind. That all happened in one timeline. But what happened next? Well, at the end of Arc 5, we learn about a duelist who had no magical items or special technology, who fused with the spirit of his 4 ace monsters and threatened to destroy the world. A duelist.
How can mom let you have 4 ace monsters? Wow. Arc 5 Arc 5 takes place its own continuity, because in the show none of the other Yu-Gi-Oh protagonists don't exist. We don't know that, right? Would you see this a theory this guy has about why they don't exist in Arc 5? Yeah, we're gonna watch that video later.
List named Zark. Zark is the consequence of Astral using the Numeron code at the end of Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal. By unsealing the power locked away by the Pharaoh,
theory, yeah.
Astral set the stage for the end of the world. In the end, the battle against Zark grew so intense that reality itself split apart, causing it to reform as the 4 different dimensions. And this is the first and only point where the Yu-Gi-Oh! Timeline actually splits. But it doesn't branch off at a single point like a normal time travel story. This is Yu-Gi-Oh! Of course it's much weirder than that. It actually splits into pieces, and each piece keeps on growing, creating 4 new timelines, all set during different periods in history, but all happening at the same time. But why didn't history just happen the same way that it did last time? Why was the fusion dimension so different from what we saw in GX? And the same goes for the other 3. Well, there are 3 big reasons. The first is that there seem to be some characters noticeably absent from their respective time periods. Where are Yugi, Jaden, Yusei, and Yuma in the new dimensions? These were major players in history, and they're all just gone. Secondly, on the day that the new dimensions were created, 2 new babies were born in each one that had not existed in the original timeline. Yuya Sakaki and Zuzu Boyle were born in the standard dimension, Yuri and Selena in the fusion dimension, Yugo and Rin in Synchro, and Yuto and Lulu in the Xyz dimension. These 4 boys were reincarnations of Zark, with each child possessing a fraction of his soul, while the girls were reincarnations of Rei, the duelist who finally defeated Zark before reality split. And of course, the third and most obvious reason that the dimensions ended up being different is that Arc 5 antagonist Leo Akiba derailed history when he started jumping between dimensions and starting
nothing
wars.
is confirmed, I see.
For all intents and purposes, Leo Akiba is a time travel from the future who jumped back and forth between the different dimensions and their different periods in history, bringing new technology with him. Where the standard dimension started out with nothing but the original Kaiba Corp era dual discs, Leo Akiba used his knowledge of the future in order to create his Solid Vision dual discs. This pollution of history caused things to play out in a fundamentally different way, where the Fusion, Synchro, and Xyz dimensions are fundamentally unrecognizable from their original versions of history.
Okay.
The plot of Arc 5 sees Zark reunite all the lost pieces of his spirit in order to resurrect himself, only to be thwarted by the heroes from all 4 dimensions and his old foe Rei. This jumbles up reality again, causing the standard dimension to be recreated as the pendulum dimension, and Zark's essence is trapped and later purified in a baby. It's a little weird. And that, my fellow duelists, is the complete Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime timeline. A magic dragon created the universe and cried itself to death, its tears gave magic to the earth, People spent a few thousand years playing cards with one another until time exploded.
Those are the
Then
most
one guy
important parts.
started an interdimensional war and blew time up again, which was ultimately fine because an evil baby smiled. It's a beautiful,
The evil baby.
wonderful series, and
So
anyone
why
who says
don't we,
otherwise
you
is
know,
wrong. And as ridiculous
baby
as that description was,
in Minecraft?
I feel like these clues fit together well enough that this may have actually been intentional on someone's part on the writing team.
Maybe.
We'll never know. Konami has long since made it clear that they don't want to be bothered with an ever-expanding continuity, and now that the anime is being produced by an entirely different studio, who knows what rights to what characters are jumbled up where. But I like to believe that there was one die-hard fan of the show on the staff who was like, "No! I will make sure there's one interconnected continuity!" Or is that just me? Why aren't you paying me for this, Konami? So, that is a connected timeline for the Duel Monsters through Arc 5 animes. But to include Brains, Seven's, Go Rush, and the various manga projects, we're going to have to move from a mildly compelling game of connect the dots to some leap of logic speculation.
Okay,
The story of
alright, this is
Playmaker
what I
and
love.
Link Brain Simulation is a weird one to fit into the series chronology. And after more research on the subject than I care to admit, I found one small detail. A tiny clue. One crumb of information
Darkness
that
mentioned
has
a
me
Duel Monster
absolutely
card
convinced
created a
that it
universe,
does.
just like the Numeron code.
Reveal! Trap card! Dimensional Barrier! Alright, let me explain. Dimensional Barrier is a trap card first released in the Arc 5 era booster pack, Invasion Vengeance.
Okay.
Its effect allows the user to declare a type of monster and negate the summoning and effects of that type of monster
barrier,
for the rest of
Jasker.
the turn. Most importantly, the allowable monster types are Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, Pendulum, and Ritual, implying that Ritual energy was mostly isolated to one little dimension of its own alongside the rest of the summoning powers. But even if we accept this card that's never appeared in the anime at face value, how do we get from a Ritual dimension exists to playmakers playing in the Ritual dimension?
What? What? Why are we using that card for anything? That card is like has nothing to do with the story, right? It's never been in the anime or anything. Like, what are we talking about here? I don't know.
Well, to start, there's simple process of elimination. Brains
Yeah, this is just
doesn't
info
seem
that-
to fit with any of the dimensions established in Arc 5, with the technology seen throughout the show appearing
Ritual
to be
summoning
both
is so
more
bad you didn't even get
sophisticated
a
in
dimension
some areas,
itself.
but
Yeah.
less in others, suggesting that industrial development occurred on a completely separate track from those worlds seen previously. Even the game of Duel Monsters has regressed. In the first 5 series, duelists wishing to perform Fusion, Synchro, and Xyz summoning were able to do so relatively uninhibited, so long as they had the necessary cards to pull it off.
Uh-huh.
But Vrains introduced some pretty specific limitations on advanced summoning, namely that players couldn't summon more than one Fusion, Synchro, or Xyz monster without the aid of newly introduced Link monsters. Why? Well, it makes sense when you consider this in
For
terms of energy.
balance.
In
Hello,
Yu-Gi-Oh!
Laser.
5Ds, we learned that dueling energy, or NRD as they call it in the dub,
Inner
is a
D.
measurable phenomenon, something which Arc 5 reaffirms when the Leo Corporation begins covertly tracking duelists by monitoring the power output their cards generate when played. And while duelists are able to perform each summoning method in any dimension, it
Executed
is
in
suggested
pendulums,
that each
obviously.
type of energy is limited outside of its home dimension, meaning that fusion energy, and therefore the ability to fusion summon, probably has some limits outside of the fusion dimension. Ditto for Synchro and Xyz. Enter Link monsters. Playmaker and the other Link Brains duelists frequently refer to the process of Link summoning as the closing of a circuit, which is important because of how they facilitate the use of extra deck monsters. An electrical circuit is simply an interconnection network that creates a path for an electrical current. Or, put simply, a circuit conducts energy from point A to point B. While there might be a deficit of Fusion, Synchro, and Xyz energy in the network of Link Brains, duelists can pass more readily available power through their Link monsters and onto their other advanced monsters. But what's the one advanced monster type that doesn't require a Link monster to come onto the main monster field? Ritual monsters. There is no restriction on ritual summoning, and Vrains represented something of a ritual renaissance for the franchise. The show features several instances of ritual summoning, the most of any series since the original Duel Monsters. 33 of the 114 ritual monsters in the game, or just under 30%, were released during the show's first run in Japan. And the Link monster card art looks kind of like ritual summoning's edgelord younger brother, which kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
After all, what is a Link monster? It's a computer program. We see Playmaker assemble them by manipulating data storms throughout the series, and his series of Talker Ace monsters are all based on programming protocols. But what is a program? It's a repeatable series of processes that perform a specific task. And what's a ritual? Archaeologically speaking, it's a series.
There was no restriction to ritual because they were the worst method. So true, it was a balance thing, that's what I'm saying.
Series of processes that perform a specific task. Sacrifice 99 villagers and you get 7 Millennium items. Tribute a Karibo to a fierce knight and you get a Blackluster soldier. Compile 4 sub-programs and you get a Firewall dragon. Intelligent enough machines can digitally replicate ritualistic behavior, and suddenly, Link Brains has the ability to source out additional power for the anemic summoning methods. Speaking of Link monsters, the show's first season doesn't feature any advanced summoning mechanics other than Link summoning, but right off the bat in episode 2 of season 2, Playmaker performs the show's first non-Link special summoning. And who does he call forth? The Dark Magician-inspired ritual monster, Cyburst Magician. A few episodes later, we meet Soulburner's Salamangreat Emerald Eagle before seeing Cyburst Magician again. This means ritual monsters beat Fusion, Synchro, and Xyz monsters to the screen not 1, not 2, but 3 times in this particular series. But there is a hole in our theory. The other 4 dimensions each resemble a specific period in history. A period where their preferred summoning method was at its height, meaning that a ritual dimension should theoretically exist when ritual summoning was at its peak. But when was ritual summoning at its height? Well, we don't really know, but we see the most instances of ritual summoning during the Duel Monsters era of the show, particularly during the Duelist Kingdom and pre-Battle City arcs, suggesting that a ritual dimension would likely be centered around this period. Similar to the world we saw in the original anime, but different. And wouldn't you know, we've already seen a world that's similar to the original anime, but different. In the film Dark Side of Dimensions, we see Kaiba unveil a new boss monster, the ritual-based Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon. Moreover, the film's antagonist, Aigami, introduces a brand new, never-before-seen summoning method, the curiously named Dimension Summoning Method. But the most important thing to take note of in this film are the new dual discs that Kaiba unveils during the movie. Blue hologram projectors that store card data as software, so that duelists no longer require physical cards to play the game. These dual discs are
I've heard that this is
identical
like
to the
super
one seen
iconic,
across
and I've seen
Link
some
Brains.
scenes.
Soul
but not the
Technologies
whole
is widely distributing the
obviously.
technology that Seto Kaiba invented, implying that Vrains takes place after Darkseid.
Shut up.
They exist on a single timeline, a timeline when this portion of history split off and became the ritual dimension, and where history played out differently from what we saw in the original series. Sure, things are similar. There's a Yugi and a Kaiba who were rivals and who saved the world. But this Yugi and this Kaiba are not the same as this Yugi and this Kaiba. They're actually the same as this Yugi and Kaiba. Yu-Gi-Oh! Creator Kazuki Takahashi, who served as the film's sole credited screenwriter, has definitively stated that the movie serves as a sequel to his original manga and not the animated series produced by Studio Ghibli. For anime-only fans, this is why Kaiba seems to have forgotten being present for the ceremonial duel between Yugi and Atem. In the manga, he wasn't there. Kaiba disappeared after the Battle City arc, and remained absent until the Darkseid prequel special, Transcend Game. And that, fellow duelists, brings us to the crux of this theory. Today, I propose that the ritual dimension is no more than the Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga timeline, a version of history that was created after
I'm
the
on
rise
board
of
now.
Zark
I'm on
and the
board with
fall
this theory.
of the original dimension. As the dimension set in the earliest period in history, and with no Zark fragments running around to fundamentally alter the course of events, this timeline would have continued on, moving into a GX era, then a 5Ds, then on to a Zexal, before reaching a new version of the Arc 5 period, where Zark never rose to power, allowing history to move on to the era of Link Vrains. And this theory is given weight by the fact that Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains is the first and only Yu-Gi-Oh! Series not to feature a companion manga, with the print version skipping it entirely in favor of publishing an adaptation of Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s instead. But why would we need a manga if this is, in reality, the story of the manga? But for those...
Huge if true. Huge if true. I honestly, wow. I don't know, I mean, it sounds very interesting. But let me big brain this, like, because I haven't read them, right? So I don't know, right? But like, Mr. Spell Commander 91 is convincing me of this. Like, it actually, like, makes sense. Like, it sound, right? Especially with the Kaiba thing, that he wasn't there and he wasn't there. Yeah, I feel like, yeah, it's all coming together, right? It's like, okay, this might be a little more complex than I thought. And I was like, wait, why is this a story of the anime and manga? And this is how you connect them. It makes sense. They made the anime first, basically. For what? I think like the Duel Monsters manga was before the anime. But yeah, and how the movie like is kind of like important for this. I'm really interested in how this theory goes. Like, show me more, please.
Those of you who are familiar with the manga versions of these stories, you might well be asking yourself why the stories presented in print are so different from the ones seen on screen.
Yeah.
After all, the GX manga also tells the story of Jade and Yuki's first year at Duel Academy, but rather than facing off against the Shadow Riders and the Sacred Beasts, Jaden is forced to contend with the dual spirit Trigadia, a creature whose Ka was created from a survivor of the massacre that created the Millennium Items. The 5D's manga doesn't feature Zone's apocalyptic future or time travel elements, but instead sees Yusei Fudo face off against the Goodwin brothers to prevent the Festival of Destiny, an ancient ritual used to resurrect the ultimate god. And Arc 5 is a time travel story that sees hero from the future Yuya Sakaki come back in time to seduce his own grandmother. Yeah, not making...
Excuse me? Excuse me? Yep, yes. Yep. I'm like, yeah, wow. You heard it right. R5 manga is a war crime. Yuya is Fry from Futurama, confirmed. I'm like impressed by how like everyone in chat like knows that, right? The chat already knows that. It's like me, the one who like didn't know this obvious thing. That is so crazy, dude. I had no idea. I've never heard of this. There is no memes for this. There is no anything. Yeah, Pepper Sexal is the only Yu-Gi-Oh spin-off that the manga came out before the anime. Oh, spin-off. Alright. Yeah, R5 manga and this is ridiculous. Because everyone wanted to forget this ASAP. I've seen this video already, so I don't count it as knowing. Okay. Interesting. Well, wow. Alright.
Making that up. Kaki come back in time to seduce his own grandmother. Yeah, not making that up. But why? Why are the stories and narratives in the ritual dimension so different from the ones seen in the original dimension? Well, it all comes down to one small change for one character.
Heard it.
Kaiba. In the original dimension, Seto Kaiba was present for the ceremonial duel between Yugi and the Pharaoh. He witnessed the Pharaoh bring out all 3 Egyptian god cards, the power that Kaiba himself had sought, and the Pharaoh still lost to Yugi. Kaiba's rivalry with the Pharaoh was put to rest because he saw for himself that Yugi was the true king of games. But in the ritual dimension, that never happened. Kaiba wasn't present for the final duel of the story. He didn't set foot into the Pharaoh's tomb until the events of Darkside, His rivalry with the Pharaoh was never given closure, and so he began to obsessively search for a way to bring Atem back from the land of the dead. Where his anime counterpart moved on with his life and began projects in space exploration and renewable energy, the manga Kaiba dedicated himself to getting his final rematch with his lost rival. And at the end of Dark Side of Dimensions, we see him hurl himself into the land of the dead. To me, this scene always read as though Kaiba knew that this would be a one-way trip. When his little brother worried that he might not come back, Kaiba evaded the subject and left everything in Mokuba's hands. When he reaches the afterlife, his body began to dissolve as he abandoned his crashed dimension ship. Seto Kaiba was willing to die if it meant proving to himself that he really was the best of the best, and his death would have changed everything we know about the story of Yu-Gi-Oh! After Duel Monsters. Who orchestrated the events of the GX and 5D's animes? Seto Kaiba. He founded the Duel Academy to study the mysteries surrounding the game of Duel Monsters, and had a direct hand in multiple aspects of the Light of Destruction and Dark Dimension storylines. The Kaiba Corporation was responsible for Momentum, the destruction of Domino City, and the construction of New Domino City. But what if Kaiba had never been there? Would any of those stories have taken place? Probably not. Adventurers like Jaden Yuki and Yusei Fudo would still have been drawn to greatness, going out and forging their own stories regardless of the circumstances around them. But without Kaiba there to kick off the events that shaped their lives, the journeys they found themselves on would have been entirely different. Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal, a story where Kaiba's influence is much less pronounced, is coincidentally the only manga adaptation that retains the same core plot as its anime counterpart. And of course, the events of Arc 5 would have been completely different, as this is a dimension where Zark was never born, meaning that the Yuya, Yuto, Yugo, and Yuri seen within the events of the Arc 5 manga would be natural-born humans, free from the corruption of Zark's influence, and born as brothers within a single dimension, because the ritual dimension never repeated the events that caused the original dimension to divide in the first place. In many ways, this world is what the original dimension should have been. A single, unbroken universe that carries on where its predecessor failed.
But what
about Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens and Go Rush, you might be asking? Well, from the first episode of Sevens, I think it's pretty obvious that this show takes place after Vrains. In the premiere episode, protagonist Yuga Odo creates the new Rush Duel format, as he felt that the game had become too structured and restricted, mirroring the sentiments that fans all over the world had about the Master Rules format implemented during the Vrains era of the game. After Yuga accidentally forced the world to adopt the Rush Duel format, the Link Vrains simulation would have been incompatible and fallen out of prevalence. Then comes Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush, which is a direct sequel to Sevens. Main characters Yui and Yuamu Oga are related to Yuga, and the world is still utilizing Yuga's Rush Duel format. And where the franchise goes from here? I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see what comes with time. Time.
Yeah, I don't know how, because he looks like a kid, right? How did he create a new game,
It's
basically?
been almost 3 years since I started making Yu-Gi-Oh! Videos. Those of you who follow my channel have probably noticed that I haven't uploaded much content this year. Back in January, I was bombarded with a series of copyright attacks by NAS, the company that produced Yu-Gi-Oh! Up until 2019. I wasn't the only channel to be hit. Dylan from Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything and a few others were targeted as well, despite the fact that all of our content satisfies the requirements of fair use.
Let's hope this doesn't happen
most of us
to
have
us.
these claims, and I believe that most of the content has been restored. But the whole thing has left a bad taste in my mouth. YouTubers like us help to grow the Yu-Gi-Oh! Brand. We keep fans engaged between releases and attract old fans back. I can't tell you how many people have reached out to me to say, I stopped watching after 5Ds, but your videos made me want to go back and watch the other shows. And to see my business and the businesses of my fellow YouTubers be targeted
Copyright strike
way,
is like the most soul-crushing
really
thing ever,
hurtful.
dude.
So making this video was much harder than it should have been. And between that, some personal changes in my life, and the loss of series creator Kazuki Takahashi, I think I'm ready to be done for a while. This isn't the end of the channel. I do intend to start making videos across a wide variety of franchises. I hope you'll all join me in the next chapter of this channel, but if you were just here for the Yu-Gi-Oh!, thanks for the good times. It has truly been one of the greatest artistic pleasures of my career, making videos for you. If you do plan on sticking around, why don't you let me know what franchises I should overanalyze next in the comments below. Then, hit the subscribey thing to see if I do it. Everybody stay safe and stay healthy, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye!
Amazing. Amazing video. Really cool theory. Honestly, to me, this is canon now. This is canon. Like, this is not a theory to me. To me, this is the truth. Okay? Like, I'm gonna tell my friends that don't care about Yu-Gi-Oh! When I'm drunk, I'm gonna tell them this. I'm gonna tell them this video. That's how it's gonna be, right? Because to me, this is the truth now. Amazing video, amazing theory. So yeah, and thank you so much for recommending it, chat. Really appreciate it. This is the second theory we had canon. Oh, amazing. It sounded crazy. It just must be true. It has to be true, right? There is no way that everything went like that and it's not true. It has to be. It just has to be.